There's people that they're diagnosed. They're diagnosed with a debilitating disease, cancer or Lou Gehrig's, and they're gripped with fear. And they have they've heard maybe you can pray for me and get healed, but they don't know any of the nuts and bolts about it. And well, what we've learned is, if you're gripped with fear, you're probably not going to get healed. And the reason for that, ask me how I know, the reason for that is because when I love Jesus, I love him and my affection is for him and I want to be with him and I'm turned to him and he's my all in all. But when I'm diagnosed with a cancer, then suddenly I'm gripped with fear. I literally have turned my back and my focus from God, and I have now bent the knee to an idol demon, fear. Fear is a demon. And I thought, now that I won't do. Come or go, die or live, sink or swim, I am not bowing the knee to a demon. And that's eternal, and I'm not going to do it. And whatever else happens for me, that's what happens. I was diagnosed with a very large tumor on my pancreas several years ago, and I was going to have to go to MD Anderson and have a Whipple and get it biopsied. Well, what was concerning to me was that my mother had died of pancreatic cancer. So I was gripped with fear, and I knew enough to know if I didn't get a handle on this, I wasn't going to make it. And so I told the Lord, I said, I'm not going to bow the knee. I'm not. I will not focus on fear. I will keep my face turned toward Jesus. But you got to help me with this. And I said, I want to say that I have this incredible faith. You know, there's faith to believe, and then there's whistling past the cemetery. And you're saying all the right things, but the faith's not there. And I knew that's where I was. And so I just went to the Lord. I said, Lord, I don't know what to do because I don't have any faith. And you know what he said? He raised his wing and he said, come right here. Under my wing, because under my wing is the safest place in the universe. You don't have anything to worry about. And that's what got me through, because every time that fear would rise up, I'd say, no, I'm climbing up under his wing and I'm going to feel his skin and I'm going to hear his heartbeat and I'm safe. No matter what happens, I'm the safest place in the universe is right here. And it got me through the place that when we finally got to MD Anderson, I felt confident in being under his wing. And so, of course, had the Whipple, and don't recommend that either. And I was doing great. And the doctor walked into my hospital room with the pathology report, and he said, you hit a home run. It's not malignant. It's benign. And I just said, oh. We cried. My husband cried. We wept at what God had done for us. And so it was just amazing. But a few days later, I said, I don't feel very good. And you're actually, when you're having a Whipple, you're on a specific floor in the hospital because the nurses are trained to look. It's called the Mount Everest of all surgeries. It's very complicated. And they take everything in this general area. It's gone. And so lots can go wrong because they're moving blood vessels and re-stitching everything together. And so I said, I do not feel good. So they sent in, got labs, and they said, okay, you're bleeding internally. And so we're going to have to take you back to surgery. And I said, oh, okay. So they rushed me back to surgery. They found the bleed, stitched it up, and then took me back to my room. They said, now, you need to not get up unless somebody's here to help you, because your hemoglobin level's low. And I said, okay. So they said, we're going to put a toity right here by the bed. If you need to use it, call a nurse. So I said, okay. So I called the nurse. It was one evening late. My husband had gone home or back to the hotel, and I said, I need to use the ladies' room. And so they sent two huge nurses, big guys, Ellis and Jonathan, big guys. And I said, I have to use the ladies' room. And so Ellis came over like a rag doll. He just went tink like that. And I was standing there and he started to say something to Jonathan at the door. And I said, Ellis, I think I'm going to faint. And he goes, hold on a minute. Bam, down I went onto the bed, face down. And he went, oh, uh-oh. And he flipped me over, and it was no pulse, no breath, fixed stare. I had coded. and he freaked out, called everybody, and so that was my death experience. And anyway, so while this is all happening and he's doing, CPR, I'm in paradise. I get to go to paradise. It was stunning. It was so beautiful. Now, I've always asked the Lord all the time, Jesus, just let me come to the throne room and have a talk with you. I won't stay long, and I promise I'll come back to earth. I just want to visit. And he's never taken me up on that, but I did go to paradise. And over here, it was the most beautiful Bavarian forest, and it was snowing. And I thought, I didn't know it snowed in paradise. And the air was pink. Now, how I can't describe to you how that works, but the air was pink. And it was just stunning. And then there's this huge vista all the way across here, mountains and glorious sky. And then over here is a park, like a little park where you go have a picnic. Not a manicured park, very fun little park. And the trees were huge and the oak leaves were this big. And I could hear the children playing and crying and laughing in the park. And at sunset, there were these birds, and they were blue on the top, and they were yellow on the bottom, and on their belly, and their wings were not like our birds' wings. There were 16 wings. Each bird had 16 wings, 8 on each side, and they didn't flap their wings. Their wings would go up and they'd start doing this, and they'd kind of rise like a helicopter. And anyway, they all went and roosted in this one tree at sunset. And then they began to sing, and they all sang. They didn't just chirp, they sang in unison, and it was the most beautiful sound I had ever heard in my life. And I just wanted to stay there, the peace and the beauty and the safety. And then I woke up and I looked down, and Ellis is 8, 9, 10, which is just surreal. It's the most surreal experience in the world. And I said, what happened? And he said, you coded. And then I floated off again. Well, what had happened is my hemoglobin dropped so low it couldn't support life. And so they had to pump me full of blood. And they said, we have to take you back to surgery. I said, I'm not going back. I'm not. They go, if you don't go, you're gonna die. I said, that's fine with me. I'll just go be in paradise, but I'm not going back to that place again. And they said, no, you have to. I said, no, I don't. I don't have to. I was the biggest brat. I don't know. I just said, no, I'm not doing it. My poor husband is beside himself, right? And I'm not doing it, and I don't care, and I'm gonna die, and I don't care, and I'm just leaving this anyway. Oh, they were beside themselves. Well, there was a knock on my hospital room door. And so Jay went to open it, and he came back to the bed and he said, honey, do you know somebody named Warren Wright? And I said, well, in 2nd grade, he sat behind me, but I haven't seen him since. And he said, well, he's outside your door. He said, he was on his way to the airport. The Lord said, go to MD Anderson right now, find Jena Taylor, and pray for her. So here I am. So I said, and of course then I had to be nice, right? So I said, fine, let him in. So he came in, he and his wife leaned over, and it was so awkward because we haven't seen each other since 2nd grade. And he laid hands on me, and he prayed for me, and then he left. And the room, all the oxygen kind of got sucked out of the room, and we're all just kind of stunned. And then all of a sudden I said, okay, I can do it now. I can do it now. Holy Spirit came to give me the strength to do what I couldn't do before, because he sent Warren Wright to find me in 16 acres, and he found me and prayed for me, and the Holy Spirit came to me to strengthen me, and we went off to surgery again. And so when I woke up in CCU, which is a very dark place, of course there's a lot of death there, so it's just a really gloomy, dark, spiritually gloomy place. And that's why I didn't like it and didn't want to go back. But I woke up and there were 3 angels sitting around my bed. Now the room was dark, but there was this glow around my bed, and they started talking about Jesus, and we started swapping stories about what he did for us and this and that. We're laughing, we're just praising God, having the best time ever. It was so great. And then my nurse came in, and I said, my nurse is here. And so they vanished, and it was so awesome. It was awesome. And I survived, and here I am several years later, and good to go, and God was good to me. And I'm so glad, because I think back on all the things I've gotten to see since that day that happened that was 2011. And I've gotten to see so many salvations and healings, and what God, just the wonder of God and His beauty on the earth and His love for us. And so I'm glad I didn't go.